Hey guys, welcome to the kitchen. I'm Wanda and this is Deep South Homestead. I've had a lot of people ask about canning. So today is going to be kind of a basic tips for water bath canning. But we're going to be canning figs, whole figs. And so that's one of the easiest things to can for me. A lot of you may not have figs, but for those of you that do, this is the way we're going to do it today. I'm going to show you just some basic tips. My number one tip, I'm going to start off with number one. It drives Danny crazy. I'm going to just tell you, when we start to can, Danny wants to run in here and just grab out everything and go to canning. My tip is, clean the kitchen first. You don't want to have stuff all over your cabinets and everything, plates and cups and spoons and dirty dishes and food, and you don't want all that on your cabinet. When you start to can, especially water bath canning, because you have to have some large pots to do a lot of this with. My number one tip, clean your kitchen. That way you can set out all your pots, set out all your produce, set out all the ingredients you need, and your cabinets are clean. They already don't have the yuck on them. You've already got them disinfected and cleaned. So that would be my number one tip. Let's talk about the second thing. Most people, when they water bath can, this is all they know, is this. This is a graniteware pot made for water bath canning. It's perfect. You can put, I think, 7 quarts or 9 pints in it. But Wanda has a glass top stove. Now, we've been water bath canning in this thing for years and years and years. And last year, I found that it takes forever for this to heat up because, you see the bottom? It's rigid. And on a flat top surface, that rigid space takes longer to heat than a flat surface. The water bath canner like this also comes with a basket so that you're not sitting your jars directly on the bottom. That's very, very important. You do not want to sit your jars on that. I would put a towel down, I would put rings down and put a towel down. I'd do something if you do not have a basket. But the problem with a glass top stove is this bottom. All right, so the next tip would be these pots. These are stainless pots with glass lids that you can see through. That see-through lids doesn't make it or break it, but that's what they are. These pots have a smooth surface. You see that? Both of them are the same type pot. I bought them, this one through Walmart here in town. This one I ordered, or vice versa, one of the two. Anyway, you can order them online. They're smooth. The heat from a glass top does better. They're heavy stainless pots, under 50 bucks. Around 50 anyway. What I'm doing, this one I use as a water bath canner. I don't remember the sizes, but I've got like a 16, 20, and maybe a 22. This one I use as a canner. I go ahead and put my water in, and in the bottom I use this. It's got holes in it, and it keeps it off the bottom a little bit so that when you sit your jars in there, it serves a little bit of the same purpose as the basket that's in the graniteware. So this is in the base, and then I've got water in here, and I've got it watered up to about here. When I put my jars in, it'll go on up and cover the jars. That flat surface cooks better on a glass top stove. Now I have a new stove coming that has the eyes on it. We're going to try that because I'm used to the eyes. This glass top was a learning curve for me. This pot I'm going to be putting the figs in. We're going to make a light syrup, and we're going to be canning whole figs. So that's going to be our process today. These pots will work just like the graniteware if you put that piece in the bottom. Anything that you can put in the base to keep the jars from sitting directly on the bottom and have a little airflow under them. That's what you're needing. Most of your jars have something written on them, and you know that you can pressure can with those. Water bath canning can be what we used to call mayonnaise jars. Your jars now in mayonnaise or plastic, so don't use plastic. But these are glass jars that don't have any writing on them. You can use those jars only for water bath canning. Do not use them in your pressure canner. Now, ball has kind of confused people a little bit. These are some of my ball jars. It has the word ball across here. It looks, to most people, it will look like a mayonnaise jar because there's no writing nowhere on it. If you just pick it up and don't pay any attention, you're thinking water bath. You can pressure can as long as this word ball is on there. So this could be used for pressure canning. We use them all the time. This one that has absolutely no writing, just use it for water bath canning. That way you can use it for these whole figs. You can tomatoes, pickles, relishes, jams, jellies, fruits, anything that you're water bath canning, you can use the jar with no writing. This is my pan that I use most all the time. I put water in here, I put my jars in, and I get them hot. It'll be on the stove in a few minutes, and I roll them around, make sure the jar is hot before I put my hot figs in it. I also have the rings and the flats in here. So once we get the figs done, I will put this on the stove and let it get hot in order to be putting the figs in there. Now when you're water bath canning and pressure canning, all of them, these lids and things say that you do not have to put them in there, that you can just put them on there. I like to kill the germs a little bit. I don't put them in boiling water, but I do get my water hot almost to the point of boiling and just leave it on a medium to low burner and keep them hot. That way I can take them out and put them on. I seem to have a better seal that way. So that's just a little bit about water bath canning. We're going to go through the process of processing whole figs, and I have it in my cookbook, Whole Figs Canned, page 75. All right, first off, we have our figs that we just picked. I have some figs that have been in the freezer, and I took them out. They're getting closer to room temperature before we get started. I have sugar, because we're going to need some sugar. We're going to make a light syrup. Danny and I like ours with 1 cup of sugar to 4 cups of water. That makes a very light syrup. If you want yours more sugary, more syrupy, add a 2nd cup of sugar to your 4 cups of water. Or you can add 3 cups if you want them really like syrupy. It's up to you. But we like the light syrup, so 1 cup of sugar to 4 cups of water. Now we're going to double, triple, quadruple that recipe according to how many figs we have. That's usually enough to do 1 to 2 quarts of figs. So we're going to have way more than that today. I also have my lemon juice ready. One thing you do not want to forget when you start jarring these figs up is to put your lemon juice in each jar. We're using quarts, and we're going to put 2 tablespoons to each jar. This retains the color, plus it also helps in this process of like preserving, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Now, we're only going to put our figs over in the syrup mixture and boil it on a gentle boil. It's not going to be a rolling boil or anything like that. It's going to be a very gentle boil for 5 minutes. Then, when we jar everything up, we're going to put them in this water bath canner for 50 minutes. And so that will cook them whole and leave them at whole. So while you're doing it in the syrup, you do not want to be stirring a lot. You want to have a good spoon that will work in here, and you just want to gently move them to keep them off the bottom. So I'm going to show you all that while we're working with canning whole figs. All right, this is 4 cups of water. I'm going to do this about 4 times so that I have enough to do quite a few figs. This is 1 cup of sugar. So now we're going to repeat this process 4 times. And we're going to stir this on occasion till the sugar melts and it gets warm. Now these stainless spoons are another investment that I would say you might want, because you don't want to be using plastic all the time. This one will come in handy later for getting the figs out. this one has a long handle, so your hand's not down in here. You don't want to be doing this because it could pop, it could boil, you could get burnt. You want something where your hand is basically out of the surface of the pan. Okay, so let's talk about a few other things. Now, I have this stainless steel funnel, and it fits jar. That's what it fits. It's called a wide mouth stainless funnel because this is wider than normal funnels. It fits the regular mouth, not a wide mouth jar. But it is called a wide mouth funnel, and you'll see why, because if you have those smaller funnels trying to put big things in there, it falls out all over the place. This keeps it in where you need it, and I love it. Now, I use my Tupperware. This is an old Tupperware 1 cup measuring cup. I use it because it fits perfect in there. I just like that. It works well for me. Now, I dip my hot juice with this cup, and it has never melted. I've heard people say that sometimes those things will melt. I've not had an issue, but you know, you dip the juice out with whatever you want. Measuring spoons. You need a good set of measuring spoons. I'm going to be putting 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each jar, so I want to make sure I get it right. A rubber mat. This, I had a subscriber send me the rubber mat, thank you Dee, and I usually use the smooth side, but I'm going to be using this side today. It catches any spills, does anything, and if you need to bump the jar down a little, having this little rubberized thing helps you do that and not bang it on a cabinet or whatever. It comes in really handy. A good set of tongs. Now these I think are put out by Echo. These will reach in and get the jar, and they're long and flat, and these are flat and they're very sturdy. You can't bend them. And you pick your jar up and you want to insert this all the way. If your jar is in water, this is what I do. I go all the way in to the bottom of the jar. That way when you pick it up and you dump your water out before you get it out of there, and then you have a good way to hold the jar and not lose it. Now if the jar is in water and you do it like this, you see it can slip and slide and you're going to be dumping water everywhere. But if you do this, see, it doesn't, it gives you a better way to dump the water out and stuff. That's for people that put them in hot water. If you don't put them in hot water, don't worry about it. This, you don't need this, you don't need to worry. But for those of you that do, a good set of tongs. Our syrup is starting to get hot. It is 4 cups of sugar, 12 cups of water. And we have these figs here. These have not been frozen. These were picked fresh this morning, and we're going to be putting them in there in a few minutes. Now these were in the freezer. We've picked these over the last week, and they're thawing out because I wanted a more room temperature. I didn't want them frozen because you have to bring this back up to a light boil. You don't want it a slow boil. And when I put frozen ones in there, it's going to kind of bring it down. It's going to take longer to get it back up to that slow boil. But you can freeze them. I just pick them whole, take a Ziploc bag, take the stems out already, and drop them in the bag, put them in the freezer. When you're ready to process them, take them back out, you're good to go. Now our water is getting to a slow boil. And I'm using this spoon to lower them down in there so that it doesn't splatter up and get all over me. And once you get quite a few in, then you can dump them from the bowl. But you have to have something on top to kind of break the fall of the figs. And you don't want to mash them. You just want to drop them in real easy. And if you get one like this, it's already kind of mushy, I just eat it. You want them usually intact. You don't want the bottoms busted. You don't want them all messed up. You want an intact fig for this whole fig process. Any of the mushy ones eat or use in preserves. Now, like this one here, you see how it looks? It's done went past its prime. That's when I would eat or put in preserves. Some people, I mean, you see they look like they're turning green. It takes the color out of them. So they are going to look like they're green figs, but what it's doing is just taking a lot of the color out because they've just turned. Okay, I think I can dump the rest of this and not splatter it. There we go. All right, so we're gonna slowly, this is still hot, it's still at a slow boil. We're gonna let these go for 5 minutes. And you don't want to mash your figs. You want to slowly, gently move them around. And you can see they look pretty green. But one thing, the juice, when you get it, will be pink. And you're going to be putting that pink juice into your jar with your figs. I've got the jar of water going so it gets hot. And we'll have this ready as soon as these are ready. So one thing is the bowl lids. We usually use the silver lids, and that's because we have a lot of humidity. They were recommended by bowl for us to use silver. I don't know what the deal is, but it's silver versus gold, but they said for us to use them in our humidity. All right, that means they're done. So what I'm going to do is set this pot off and have it sitting over here out of my way for just a minute while those sit. The jar's going, so I'm getting them hot. So the ball lids, silver and humidity. They said they last longer than the gold. Rings, always check your rings. If they're dented or you see something wrong with them, they're all rusted inside or something, pitch them. Rings come with all your jars. Use good rings, but check them, make sure, because you want a good seal when you put this on there. So always check your rings. Our jar is getting hot. We're fixing to start jarring up now. Alright, I roll the jar in this hot water just a little bit. And like I said, you do it this way. You don't want to dump water on your stove. You do not want to dump it on yourself. Dump it out. Put your hot jar over here. Add the next one. Roll it around. Let it be getting hot. And you're good to go. Now, we put this on here. 2 tablespoons. That's 1. 2. You want 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each one, and then we're going to start putting our hot figs. You see how pretty? And you don't want to get too many. They got to fall down in there. There they go. And you don't want to pack these. You don't want to be mashing them. So that's why the mat comes in handy, because you're going to want to settle them a little bit. And these are hot. Okay, so we've about got, and the jar's going to be hot, so you have to be careful. And see, I can put 2 or 3 more. So we're going to do maybe 3 more. We're going to bounce it a little just to settle it. And people don't like me using this, but it's the best thing I found for doing this. And you see the liquid? The liquid is pink. And so it will turn your figs back a brown color while they're cooking in this jar. Let's wipe the top with a cloth or a paper towel, vinegar on it to help get any sticky off. This magnet comes in handy with getting your lids off. I love it. You can stick it over in the hot water. It gets it like this. You put your lid on. And Danny always likes the name ball, and I'm using this, the name ball to line up with the name on here so that when you look at it, this and this, your writing is here, and it easier to see. Now it is hot. And then the tongs. This come as a set, and it has more stuff in the set. But the tongs. Now this is a regular mouth jar. Right at the top, you make sure you're really holding it good before you pick it up. Now if this was a wide mouth jar, it would go to right here in the center of it because it's wide across here and it would hold it. But we need it for this one. And we're going to sit this in our hot water, and then we're going to cook these in boiling water for 50 minutes. Okay, as you can see, we still have quite a bit of juice left. And I've only done 3 quarts out of the figs that we harvested today. So now I'm fixing to do the frozen figs. I'm bringing this syrup back up to par. You can still use the same syrup. You can also put it in the refrigerator and any excess and use it up to 3 days later. I'm going to be adding the frozen figs, and then we're going to bring it up to a hot, slow boil, and then we're going to jar these. And you can see the color starts disappearing once they hit that hot syrup. Alright, this is my last jar. This pot right here will hold 7 quarts, just like the graniteware. Now I have some figs left, and there's only about maybe a quart or quart and a half left in that syrup. I'm going to let that syrup cook. As long as the canner cooks, I'm going to let this cook. So we're going to have fresh figs in about 50 minutes, guys. Now I have the jars covered in water, and I'm putting the lid on. Now some people will do it in an open canner, but as long as the water is over the top, but I prefer having a lid on it. I will keep an eye on it over the next 2 to 3 minutes till it gets up to a boiling, and I'll turn my stove down some and just keep it at a boil for 50 minutes. Now I'm going to give you a little tip for cleaning. The latex surface, the sticky surface, is all in this bowl here. Now you can sit and scrub if you want to, but the pots are going to be even worse. I put about a spoonful of olive oil, or any type of oil, it doesn't really matter, in here, and you take and rub that oil all over the place. Coat the whole surface in oil. And it makes it turn loose. Now we're going to have some hot water. I'm going to add a little bit of soap. Okay, the water's hot, and you're just going to wash. And that's the way you get figs off any surface. Okay, so the rubber mat, I put in hot soapy water. Make sure everything is good. Rinse it. it over to drain. Now you would think hot soapy water got this clean. It looks clean, but you can feel that film in it. I can feel it, I can see it, it's still sticky. So I've got enough oil here because we're going to be needing it. I've got pans and all. I just rub this down really good, all inside where the figs were. And then I rub the outside. And you do this after you've washed any other dishes. This is the last thing you do because you're going to have a lot of oil in your water. Voila. No more stickiness. It's all clean. It's nice. Spoon. These spoons are the same way. You see that white film? That is sticky because I was taking those out. Just stick it in there. Get oil all over it. Do both sides and the handle. And if some of it's stubborn, you can use a scratchy if you need to. But usually, just putting oil on it usually brings it off. All right, no whiteness. Isn't that awesome? All right, there are 7 jars out. The figs did float to the top, but they'll settle back down some. The juice is a pretty pink color, and I put the towel over it because of the air conditioning and stuff. We don't want it to cool down too fast. Let it just kind of stay a little warm and cool down at a normal temp, and we'll be listening for some pops. All right, you see that? It is clean. The oil does the trick to get the film of the stickiness from the figs out of your pots and pans and off your utensils. So it's been 24 hours. I've taken the rings off the top of these because I do not leave the rings on when we store them. I've washed my jars to get any sticky film off, and I've wrote on the tops. I put figs 7/3/20 because that's when I did them, because you never know who comes behind you. Even though you may know what's in your pantry, somebody may pick up a jar and go, what the heck is that? And when was it done? How old is it? So always write on top of them, so that somebody in the future will know what it is and how long it's been preserved. So guys, I hope this has been a little bit of a help on basic water bath canning and how to can whole figs. I hope to do a video soon on pressure canning, and it'll just be the basics again. The basics on canning, because we've had so many questions, and I thank you guys for the questions, and I hope I answered them. If I did not answer your water bath canning questions, put them in the comments below, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.